Welcome back to the Justin Johnston Show. It's our first show of 2025, and a lot of discussions out there about all the changes that are happening, from robots in warehouses, in Amazon warehouses, a lot of mechanized things, right? I mean, it's like, how fast are jobs going to be replaced? Does it impact the average person and worker, right?
Yeah.
And in addition to that, these drones. Now, I've been a little surprised that a lot of people don't know about the drones that have been, I think, initially spotted over New Jersey. And there's fleets of drones. They're larger, and people are like, hey, why are the drones out? And this has been several months ago that it really started to ramp up. As more information's come out, it's like, we can't identify the drones. At one point, they thought that there was some nuclear warhead that was stolen, and that it was maybe in New Jersey, right? And they were saying, oh, well, they'll be able to fly these drones over them, and then they can, get the radon or whatever's coming off of the nuclear warhead, right? Or if there's some other thing that they can sniff and smell or sense, right? Or these drones are very unique. The government's come out and said, hey, we don't know what's going on. We don't worry about it, right? And they're like, well, no, we are worried about it, right? I mean, New Jersey, there was some in Maryland. Now some that people are spotting all over, in Europe as well. And people are saying, hey, these aren't drones. These are something different. They're a little unique. Some of the footage that they took from it was, everything has a source of power, right? So if you looked at it under infrared, you would see heat coming off, or if you were to watch something and it was self-propelling itself, heat comes off of it, right? I mean, you can see it, and these aren't exhibiting that. And in addition to that, once they leave, they'll like go out over the ocean and just keep going, and they can go for 5-6 hours beyond what any other drone is. So it's got a lot of people freaked out, and a lot of people don't know because for whatever reason, the mainstream media is not reporting on it, right? So if you watch a lot of YouTube or your feed and the algorithm in your Instagram is showing you that stuff, then you're going to see it. If not, the main place I've heard is Joe Rogan, because he's always talking about that. And what's coming out from this, here's some interesting stuff. What do you think? And you didn't know about it, right?
No. Mine's filled with comedians and just funny stuff.
Yeah, and I have part of that feed too, but I guess I kind of get serious about some of this stuff, and I'm just intrigued by it. All the things that are happening out there, things that we've talked about for years and years and years. One of them, UFOs, alien, things like that. So Joe Rogan recently had a guy on. It's what I was out in my yard cleaning up leaves, and I was listening to this podcast. It wasn't his latest guest. It was right. I think it was released a week before Christmas, right? And so they were talking about it. So one thing that we found out now is not only have we had more sightings of these drones in formations, some of them, there's 20 or 30, 40 of them, right? So in addition to all these things, now we found out that they've been flying over military bases, and that's brought up other things with the UFOs. But I mean, it'll go right over. They were over the White House. They were over the Capitol building, and they've not made the news. The news isn't reporting this, right? So they've been basically flying under the radar. If we do know what it's about, Trump was asked, and he's like, yeah, I know some things about it, but I'm not discussing it right now at this moment, So people are kind of freaking out. It's like, what does he really know? Bottom line is, I think maybe they aren't telling. If we know what it is, and it's America's secrets, right? That maybe it's our drones, right? And we're testing them out. Then I'm okay with them maybe not telling us everything, because obviously the other countries need to kind of be freaked out, but they're showing up in different places. I think there is something that what came out in the Joe Rogan, right, is that the pilot that was part of when they filmed those UFOs that went from like 50,000 feet down to sea level, which, I mean, we have nothing that'll move that fast, and people would die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'd snap their neck, they'd pass out. You can't. And then it went under the water, up out of the water, and so that was one of the pilots that was out on a training mission in the Pacific when they recorded that. That's kind of what's been released out there. It's like, hey, we're not sure. We're looking into this. What I found out is that actually was a lot more interactions, that these things were mystery, unidentified flying objects, unmanned drones potentially. When they'd get close to them on the radar, they'd just disappear. Then they said, back, so this is like 10 years ago that this stuff was happening, right? Back when they actually filmed that, this fighter pilot was just out on these training missions doing it, and he was on Joe Rogan talking about it. Well, since he retired, he's actually started a company that's actually tracing a lot of these things, trying to get to the bottom of it. UFOs, drones,
Oh, okay.
and he's a really smart guy. That he's like, I don't question anybody's. I just listen, right? He said, so I've got thousands and thousands of these stories that people are doing. He had personal interaction, and what happened from this base that was in, I think, Southern California at the time, they were doing training missions, and somebody had like a near close encounter of like maybe colliding with him, and the pilot just like, the hell with this, and he flew back and canceled the mission. Well, when you do that, it triggers all sorts of things, right? Like, hey, okay, well, we have to do an internal investigation. You're not going home tonight. We're all going to sit here, right? So, but the guy's just like, he tells it. Well, when he came out with it, there was about 4 or 5 other pilots that came out and said, okay, you know what? I didn't want to, because when we talked about some of the other things we've seen in the past, everybody's like, okay, yeah, you didn't really see it. That's not what it was, right? So
Yeah, not believing them.
Yeah, they don't believe them. They don't give credibility for it. And there's guys who are out there. Well, there's times that, basically he was pointing out, it's not just military. There's commercial aircraft, pilots that have had encounters, some with the drones, some. And here's the crazy part about it. They actually saw it. This one was in the shape of like a cube, but it had a sphere ball around it, but it was clear. You could tell there was a sphere, right? It was like hovering inside that, and it was moving any way that it wanted to move. Some of them went down the water. Right? There's that one. The famous one's the one that's like, they call the tic tac shape of like a little tic tac. I think even that one supposedly had, when they had eyewitness encounters of it, it was like a little sphere was around that too, right? So really crazy stuff that's now been coming out. Every story that's ever come out about aliens or UFOs has just been shot down. It's like, that's not what it was. It was a weather balloon, for the 20th time, And then we did have that Chinese weather balloon that came over and flew across our country,
Confirmed to everything else that I see. That's what it is.
Yeah. Hey, and it went over, but it wasn't really a weather balloon because it was from China. And then they blow it up after it goes over NORAD, and all the other stuff in the country, and floats out into the ocean. Biden's like, take that son of a bitch down, and they go out, blow it up, and then they couldn't find it. That's what they're telling people, right? It's just crazy stuff. A lot of crazy things right now that are, I personally think that it's podcasts like these. Obviously, we don't have the viewership that would get it out there, but it's alternate media that people are talking about this stuff, right? And it's not the mainstream media. Nobody hears this on the news. Like, they may give a little blip on it, but these are like, all you got to do is search YouTube or Instagram, and you're going to see these videos that are out there. It's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
So the technology's there. We're talking about drones, right? We're spending millions and billions of dollars on these aircraft, right? That pilots still have to fly. And, we're watching these other countries. Look at this play out, even in Russia and Ukraine, that battle. I mean, they've got guns, they can shoot them from the air. You know what I mean? They're trying to shoot them out of the air they don't have a shotgun. I think they're having more guys with shotguns to shoot them out of the air like a bird. But I mean, they're like, got an AK-47, just trying to blow them out of the air. They blow tanks up, they blow trucks up with these drones, $100 drone, and the Chinese have like 5 billion drones, and they've got like really advanced, like they don't even need anybody to man them. They just say, here's the target. They show them on a map. It's all geocoded. Take off, 50,000 drones go out. We want you to blow up this section, right? Oh, and this picture of Kennedy, face recognition, they assigned 20 of the drones. We specifically want you to fly into her head and blow it up, right? Kill her.
Where are they sending them?
Well, those they're saying could happen, right? They've got the technology to do it.
Okay.
They're using them in Ukraine, Russia, and, I think it was Ukraine that was really stepping up and using them, I've seen the footage. It's crazy. I mean, they got drones that are, there's guys that are down in like foxholes, and they just kind of go up over and drop little bombs on them, blow these guys up. They can shoot them. They'll just fly the drone right into them and it'll explode. So I mean, we're at a time that we talk about like advancements in technology, robots. Everybody's like, well, I mean, it's here. It's happening, right? I mean, it's changing the entire dynamics of warfare. Right now,
Yeah.
we were discussing this, and we know that, Amazon, California, Teamsters, they've been on strike, right? I mean, it's happened in some of the larger metropolitan areas where their unions have a stronger foothold. And Amazon's not been really good to negotiate. Look, we pay a fair price to our, not a price, we pay a fair wage to our employees to do a job. As it gets more competitive, we have to pay, right? More money or whatever. Well, they're holding out for more. They think they're going to get more money, and they're
replacing with robots.
And I've seen them. They're like robots that are like a foot off the ground, that are like walking, because they're carrying a package. Mm-hmm. Some are drones. They've tried to deliver stuff with drones for a while, and they've not had a good outcome with that, like it drops in the yard or the wind's too big, for it, and stuff like that. And they're flying medication or something like that, your prescriptions, from Walgreens or Amazon, whatever. But so I think it's being implemented, and as the technology is getting better, now they're replacing them. It's like, oh, hey, you know what? It cost us a lot up front to buy all these droids, so to speak, robots. But they don't get tired. They have to charge at the end of the day, or maybe they can only work for 3 or 4 hours at a time. Then they charge for an hour. We'll just get more of them, right?
Yeah.
You worked in an Amazon, shipping facility, right? I mean, you were actually packaging and putting the boxes together to send them out. So, so you had hands-on experience with that. It's hard to get the employees too, right? So I think that they're like, geez, not only is the employees want more money, we get that, but the problem is that we're short-handed already.
Yeah.
They're short-handed. They
it's
can't
hard
hire
to
enough
keep
people
there. Yeah.
And so I think it was about a year ago when they went from 1.6 million employees to like 1.5. And I think that's right, except they had to like implement like 750,000 of the robots then.
Yeah, that's... Yeah.
And then as it's gone on, so I think that they're saying, hey, you know what? We'll maybe get to about 1 million employees, right? But our goal is to just keep expanding the robots. I think they'll do that over time, right?
Yeah.
I saw the 3 types of jobs that are most difficult to replace are blue-collar jobs that are not repetitive motions, right? So just about all blue-collar jobs. There's some that are more repetitive than others. So they could get like maybe a robot to do one task, like glue pipes or something like that, and that they can do that. Like if the pipe's already cut, everything's there, they can do it. Glue it, set it in, do it right. But it takes enough. There's always some little issue, right? If you've ever done any of these construction jobs, it's like there's not a room that's perfectly square. So if you're laying down flooring, you got to okay, do we want the last row to have this gap where you can see on the board it's like that wide on the one side of the wall, and you get down to the end and it's like that? Or do we want to start to stagger it, push it a little bit more? Guys that do that all day, they know what I'm talking about with that stuff, right? And every job you go to do in any type of a blue collar skilled job, it's never the same, exactly the same from place to place. It's maybe the temperature changes, right? So you have to do things a little differently, right?
Yeah.
So it takes a smart person to do it. Here all these guys are going to college to get educated and all these other things that are now going to be replaced with AI and robots, right? It's like they're replacing architects. Yeah, they're going to replace, because it's just a function, right? It's like, design this building. This is how many square feet. We need to maximize this site out, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the robot or the AI
seems
can
like an
do it.
AI's job, yeah.
So blue-collar jobs that are non-repetitive. Emotional jobs that it actually takes care, counselors, teachers, a robot would be up there, why are the kids talking? Oh, well, they had a question. Right now, it's hard for a robot to say, oh, hey, to this big group, I've got to take, or it's not, let me try a different teaching style. You're going through these problems, well, they're not going to have a robot. It's like, there's not an answer for it, right? It's like, here's the stuff you can work on in your life. Cells. Cells requires emotional connection, relationships.
For trust and...
Trust, contact. So, these are the jobs that are always going to be in demand at some level or another. Mm-hmm. And we haven't found something to replace them with it, right? Replace those types of jobs. I remember when they were coming out with autonomous cars. We talked about this last time. They're working now. And I remember people coming out and saying, look, we're so far away from being able to have, and this is just a couple of years ago, for having an autonomous car that could drive, you could just let go. And then I went into a Tesla, son-in-law, that he has Teslas. He's had several models of them. Every time I get in it, the new version, to watch that it's got cameras, and we were going down the road at night, and it was after a garbage day, right? So all the garbage cans were out on the street, right? Mm-hmm. Both sides of the street. It had snowed. There was stuff. So whenever there's that type of thing, some people shovel their snow up towards the curb. Some people don't have it, so they're like piles of snow, and it was. You could see it. You could see it on the map. It was seeing all these things and the garbage cans, right? And I just thought, this is crazy, right? So he said, yeah, well, I said, will it just drive? And he's like, yeah. He gave him the coordinates, what they're doing. And we get up to the road, and it's loose gravel. They'd put all the cinders out to make sure the roads weren't super slick. And it's like, and it pulls out like aggressive. And he's like, oh, whoa. He's like, I was going to back that off.
Yeah.
You can make it so it's like a little less aggressive, right? But it took a shot, and no problem. It wasn't like being overly aggressive.
Yeah, not
right?
dangerous.
It just, hey, there's no cars coming right now. They could see that they were, but it just whipped out and did it, right? And I'm just like, man, that is amazing. I've seen the lawnmowers out there mowing fields, unmanned. They just told them, go out there and mow the lawn,
Yeah.
That's... To me, I think, hey, it's a motor, it's got a blade, you know what I mean? You want to be careful just letting that go, but they perfected them at some level, right? So it's really interesting. I don't know how this is going to impact, but it appears that all these years we've been talking about it, for whatever reason, at this point, we have quantum computers that's merging with general intelligence, and now we've had this artificial intelligence, right? And it's solving problems, like big problems, and it's all coming to a head right now. We know jobs are going to be replaced, right? Then I'm finding out all these different ways that they have been used in the past right? I mean, like, I said teacher because that's one of the ones that they predicted, but then I ran into the math teacher at UVU and was talking about some things to do with the AI. She said, "Oh, I've been using it for several years. It's the most amazing thing." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, everybody learns at different levels, right? And some people are advanced in mathematics, but they're all kind of going through. But if you don't get one little concept, right, and the class keeps going, I mean, you're going to be lost, totally lost, right?"
Yeah.
Anybody that's been in that situation, I have, when I got into calculus, it's like, what? She was saying that it was being used, so you start to go in, and everybody's test was different. Everybody's homework was different, right? You'd go in, and then it would identify where you were weak. And instead of like, okay, you did 3 of the problems right, it's like, oh, they've got a little problem with this, right? Just one conversion, fraction, something like that, and so it would pick it, and it would give simple ones, and then they'd make them just slightly harder, not slightly harder. And so she said, normally I would have had, maybe a quarter of the class drop out, right? I think she was like college algebra is what she was teaching. College level, I mean, the kids have all had algebra, they've all had the other stuff, but it moves fast enough that if you got too big of a load or whatever it is, right, they're going to drop out. She said, I didn't lose those kids. I lost a couple, but it wasn't because they couldn't keep up. She would do it, and she was the professor, right? So she implemented it, but they were using this AI program, and she said it was amazing because the kids would go in, all these kids with different backgrounds, different ways of thinking, some more creative, some are very analytical and math-minded. They would have little phrases of what breakdown, this is how it would, and so that's the homework you'd get. And it would build up from there, and maybe because you didn't understand some of the initial things, maybe your homework was 15 questions, right? And it's like, okay, she's got it down. Mine, I might be doing 45, little problems. Not hard, but they're like, okay, we're going to build on this, and then I would get something wrong. So I'd go back, kind of pick up from there. You know what I mean? That's like,
Yeah.
Oh, okay, he's getting it. And it got down to where it gave me the last 15 questions you had.
She was still like getting up in front of the class teaching, but she used the AI, the robot stuff to like help her know how to teach each student.
Yeah.
Is kind of what it came down to.
Yeah, because so she could go in and see the results and what they were missing too, right?
Yeah.
And she said, she said, hey, I'm good with this. I'm really patient. She taught everything from like junior high, high school, college. So she knew how to work with kids. I could tell that she loved what she did, right? And she was going through that. And she said that she used this program, whatever the next class was going to be, she'd be up in front of the class, right? And, they got that little thing that they're writing, and it's projecting it up on the white screen, But at the end of the day, you got to write the problems out. You got to show the kids how to do it and stuff like that. So she just said it made it so much easier. And she said, and she said, if I checked the stuff before the class, she said, I knew there was 3 kids that still were struggling, right? So she'd say, okay, stay with me. And she said, I didn't necessarily have to take the full class time to do it. Some of the kids were actually already doing their homework, what they needed to learn to get to the next thing in class. And she'd say, hey, I sent you a little notice, so the kid, they didn't have to call them up. It's like, there's, hey, those that needed to talk with me after to discuss it, and they were already notified, everything like that. She just said it was really cool, because even with all the background that she had, she would miss certain things that the kid would say, oh yeah, no, I get that. Well, she couldn't sit there and do the next 10 questions with them, right? Because she was bouncing around the class trying to help the kids that need help. So she's doing that too, but so the kid kind of was maybe getting it, but he just said that because we do that as humans,
Yeah.
Well, AI's not, it's like, oh, you did this wrong. It knew exactly the next problem to convert. And if you're not getting it at that point, then obviously, maybe go back to add, subtract, divide, right? Something, right? You've got to. So the bottom line is that's an area, because I earlier had said that teachers would be a profession that would be very difficult to replace. And I think that would be the case, right? I think it'd be live kids in a classroom, but at the same time, I think what we're going to see is that general information and knowledge is going to be out there for people, right?
Yeah.
Google, my understanding is what they're planning to do, because they've got artificial intelligence, and then I think they're terming it general intelligence. I've heard that term used quite a bit more where it's actually solving some of the problems, and the quantum computers is what they are going to have in the back end, right? So Google's talked about, like, they want 3 nuclear power plants to run their back end stuff. It takes a lot of juice to get this, right? To track all these things to do it. But I think, so they're making the investment. Texas Instrument acquires Micron, IM Flash, up in Lehigh. They've added on to it. They're adding on to it. They're going to make more
What is
silicon chips. They're making the chips for processors, right? Computer processors at every level, and so that takes place. So it was a big transaction, and they're dumping quite a bit of money back in there into the school systems, stuff like that locally. I know that they made huge expansions in Texas. There were several in, like, outside of Phoenix area. But at the end of the day, some of the infrastructure stuff was being built. These data centers, big warehouses with nothing but racks of computers. Everything we have is stored on the cloud, right? In normal things in the past, it'd be like, hey, do you have a thumb drive for that? I need, well, I don't, but I'm going to burn a DVD for you or something like that, right? A stupid disk, They could get busted, you know what I mean? It's like, I got everything backed up. Yeah, well, they just stole that back up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like 1,000,001 things could happen. You don't know until you're, like, trying to save it on floppy disks or thumb drives and all that. And we're still going to have a need for that, like, right there and then, but at the end of the day, everything's in the cloud, so everything's being stored. And I want all my stuff to be there forever. I don't want to, like, not be able to get access to it, right? I've scanned all my pictures, videos. They're on the web or in the cloud. In the cloud, right? So they're building the back-end computer systems, actually solving the problems, right? So every time I want to do a query or solve a problem, there's a computer somewhere that's doing this function, right? It's moved so fast. Sometimes when you were a kid, iPhones come out. Before that, there was no internet on the phone. There was, like, you could get it, like, I'm going to check my bank account information. And it wasn't like you did it in an instant. Like, you'd kind of be sitting there. It's like, you didn't want to, like, do it, like, right at the counter, because it might take 45 seconds to a minute,
Yeah.
But going from flip phone, there was a couple of transitions in between there. One of my favorite phones was a Palm phone. It's moved so fast now, right, that everybody I know, it doesn't matter how much money you have, almost. Everybody's got an iPhone or a Samsung, right? Because it's worth so much money to them on the other side, from entertainment, all their information, everything that way. They'll forego something else. Like, hey, I'm sorry, the kids aren't going to eat. They're going to eat less. We're going to have them because I got to have my iPhone. Right?
Yeah.
People make the sacrifice because it's so powerful. It has so much, and you'd be at a disadvantage if you didn't have it, right, to some degree. I go to check in at the doctor's office.
Yeah, and they want you to
scan. And they send me a text.
Yes.
I hated the clipboard, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd be like, I'd just like, no. I might have had like a, small stroke or something that morning, I'm just kidding. I might have had some little issue, but I'm like, I'm not getting into that. I had this surgery a couple years ago. I'm not going to say I had a surgery and fill it all out, right? They've got all that stuff now on there. Like, we know what freaking your records are. Yeah. We're just going to have you update, because the one thing we want you to do is just pay with your card, right? Or pay with your Venmo. Mm-hmm. Whatever you want to pay for, we just want our money. So we're going to send you a text, fill it out, and you can come back and see the doctor, right? If that's what it is. It's crazy to think. You can't really go anywhere. I go the other day to buy, I have Apple Pay on my phone, my iPhone. I get to the counter, I reach in my pocket. I didn't bring my wallet. Normally I have some cash in there too for some goofy occasion. I forgot both, right? They're sitting in my home. I don't know what I did for several hours of the day, because I must not have went to lunch or something like that, but I'm trying to buy this thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, but I had like all the crap at the counter. You know what I mean? Like, and it's being ring up, and do you take Apple Pay? You know?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, no problem. That's right there. I'm like, shit, paid faster than you could do a card, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I love this thing. You know what I mean? And
There's nothing you really can't do with it. It's
you have to have them. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I talk about like not letting the grandkids like keep that iPad away from them. You know what I mean? And then the next thing you know, and I saw this before some other people. It's like, we're not going to let you play with that iPad right now. We're going to do, and then I like give 5 minutes later, all the adults got their head down, right?
Yeah.
And they're on their
Yeah.
stuff. Some are on iPads, some of them are on their iPhone, and the kids over there like watching some stupid cartoon. Hey kids, we're going to do this today, and the kids are like, I'm like, dude, we're all freaking addicted to this.
Yeah.
Nobody's telling us to get our ass off the iPhone. You know what I mean?
Literally.
We should, you know.
Yeah.
But if we have a downtime for just a second, I mean, that's why shorts, right? YouTube shorts, all these other things and that are out there. It's like we want to be entertained all the time, and we want to know the information right now, right?
Yeah.
We're bugged if we try to like look up something. Like
And
we
it
were
takes
trying to look
longer
up
than
some of
2
this stuff.
seconds
What?
and then it takes longer than 2 seconds to load.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Give up on this stuff. You know, I'm just like, no. You needed the answer right there. We were going to talk about some of these things. So when I was a kid, they had Encyclopedia Britannica. There was a couple different companies that had encyclopedias, right? And it went from A to Z. And there was a couple of them that had like, C's got 2 books, you know, went from C to CH, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, things were changing fast enough. I mean, people would always sell. It's like they'd have people go door to door to try to sell them, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like, you've got kids in your home. You want to give them an edge so that they can get in college, that they have the answers to these things, right? Encyclopedia Britannica. If you didn't get that for your kids, you were irresponsible parents. You know what I mean? You were like, and the thing what started to happen. And it was about the time the internet was coming out. It happened years before that even, right? So what version did you have, right? Mm-hmm. Well, most everybody ended up with some Encyclopedia Britannica, but it might be 1985, and you had a set that was 1976, right? Well, hell, a couple things came out in that time period.
Yeah,
That you would read something that was 100% wrong, right? I mean, it was like, how many moons did some planet have, or some other goofy thing.
By 5 years, they found out it had more.
It had more, and it was totally different than what we think, which we're now finding out, like with all these other computers and satellites that are out there that have been out there for years and years and years. It's picking up data. I mean, things change daily. So in finishing up, I wanted to just say a couple of things. One, we started out this talking about drones. Anybody out there that has information, please email or send us a link or something, messages. Of course, subscribe below, right? And comment, like, or if you don't like it, tell us that too. But I would love to hear from you that way. Would love to get drone footage of these mysterious drones. Anybody that's got that, I would love to see it. We're trying to have things that are interesting, right? Besides, we have real estate, that's what we do every day. Then there's other interesting topics, right, that people are dealing with in business. We love small businesses. We love cutting edge, the person that's got that novel idea that's going to try to change something just a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in Utah, but it doesn't have to be in Utah. Please reach out to us. I love new technology or a different spin on what people are doing. Reach out to us. If you can't make it here to Provo for an interview, we'll interview you anywhere. We want to actually promote businesses that are doing interesting things. We do have some that are lined up, we're pretty excited about, but please reach out to us because I don't think we can do enough of that. We'd love to hear from the new businesses, new technology, things that you're doing to change the world.
Yeah.
And we'd like to end this episode with a robot. Life is short, be happy. No.
See you next time.
See you next time.